Steve Jobs, the visionary force behind Apple, was unceremoniously fired by the CEO who had once been hired personally by himself, leaving the tech world speechless. As Apple rolled out one groundbreaking product after another, few realized the chaos brewing behind the scenes. His sudden departure not only left Apple vulnerable, but also kicked off a fierce power struggle for control. Get ready, because in this video, we will reveal to you why the founder of Apple was brutally fired from his own company, Apple. And not only that, but also how another of Apple's co-founders made the biggest mistake in his life. And because of that, he lost $62 billion. Today, people know Apple as a global tech giant, but only a few of us know that its origins are extremely ordinary. The 1970s in America was an era of change, and among those revolutionaries were Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, two tech visionaries at the forefront of a movement that would change the world forever. Yet, when the duo started off on this journey, they never expected it to turn into the behemoth it now is. Wozniak didn't build the Apple I for profit. He built it to empower the average person. He believed that putting computers in the hands of everyday people could level the playing field and give them an advantage in a world dominated by big corporations and the elite. Jobs, on the other hand, wasn't just a salesman for Wozniak's creation. He was a visionary who believed in the power of revolutionary ideas to reshape the future. Together, they formed a dynamic duo with a mission much bigger than simply selling computers. In 1976, Apple was officially founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. In the beginning, the two men had a rough breakdown of business responsibilities. Jobs handled business and creativity, while Wozniak engineered their creations. Their goal was to sell Wozniak's hand-built personal computer, the Apple I. Yet, despite their grand ideas, the company's first office was in the garage of Jobs' childhood home, where they began assembling and selling the Apple I, a bare-bones motherboard with a CPU, RAM, and some basic video chips. The Apple I was released in July 1976 at a price of $666.66. Yet, shortly after Apple's launch, Ronald Wayne chose to quit, selling his stock for only $800. A choice that cost him dearly, since his share would have been worth an astonishing $72 billion today. On January 3, 1977, Apple Computer Inc. was incorporated, thanks in significant part to multimillionaire investor Mike Markula. Markula became the company's third employee, with a 1/3 stake. He played a significant role in shaping Apple's future, even suggesting that Michael Scott be appointed as Apple's first CEO, given Steve Jobs' youth and unpredictability. This was just the beginning of Apple's incredible journey. In 1977, the Apple II hit the market, and it shook the tech world. What set this machine apart wasn't just its color graphics. It was a groundbreaking piece of software called VisiCalc, the world's first killer app. This spreadsheet and calculation tool transformed the Apple II from a cool personal computer into a must-have for offices, outshining competitors like Tandy and Commodore PET. With this advantage, Apple revolutionized the computer industry, bringing cutting-edge tech right into the hands of businesses and consumers alike. By 1978, Apple had evolved from a garage setup to a legitimate business, with a full-fledged production line for the Apple II and a growing team of employees. The company's revenues skyrocketed, doubling every 4 months. Apple's sales ballooned from $775,000 to a staggering $118 million in just 3 years, a mind-blowing average growth rate of 533% annually. From there on, it was Jobs' growing ambitions that granted him access to Xerox's legendary Park Lab, known for its breakthroughs like the laser printer, Ethernet networking, and the mouse. In exchange for the visit, Apple offered Xerox the chance to buy 100,000 shares at just $10 each. The visit to Park gave Jobs and his team a glimpse into the future of computing, particularly with graphical user interfaces, which would later influence Apple's own innovations. The issue was that by 1980, competition was heating up. IBM and Microsoft had entered the race, and Apple needed to step up their game. They released the Apple III, aimed at corporate computing, but it didn't quite live up to expectations. Jobs insisted that the Apple III should have no fans or vents, but that meant the system had never-ending overheating problems. Ultimately, the Apple III flopped, losing ground to IBM's machines as Apple faced its first major stumble in the corporate market. After he visited Xerox PARC, Steve Jobs became convinced that the future of computing lay in the graphical user interface, GUI. He quickly set his sights on integrating this groundbreaking feature into Apple's next computer, the Apple Lisa. But his failures with Apple III had led to massive mistrust in Apple's leadership, not to mention the ever-growing rumors of Jobs having anger issues. Eventually, due to internal conflict, Jobs was removed from the Lisa project and instead placed in charge of a more budget-friendly computer, the Macintosh. Little did Jobs know, this would be a defining moment in his early career. Because when the Apple Lisa was released in 1983, it was a commercial disaster. With its sky-high price and lack of software support, consumers were forced to look elsewhere. Thankfully though, despite this setback, Apple's stock continued to soar. On December 12, 1980, Apple went public at $22 per share. The company's 4.6 million shares were snatched up immediately, making it the largest IPO since Ford's in 1956. The IPO not only created 300 instant millionaires, but also made Steve Jobs $217 million richer overnight, since he was the company's largest shareholder. Jobs may have been sidelined from the Lisa, but the Macintosh became his new obsession. Released in 1984, the Macintosh was revolutionary, known for being the first mass-market personal computer to incorporate a GUI and a mouse. Unlike the Lisa, the Macintosh was a hit. Though the graphics hardware were costly, Apple priced the Macintosh at $2,495, a price aimed at making it accessible to home users. Its black and white graphics, along with its visual appeal, attracted design professionals from all over, especially those in the desktop publishing space. With a built-in handle for portability, it was both functional and friendly in appearance. Just a few months after its release, Apple had shipped 70,000 units. It was around the same time as the Macintosh's launch that Jobs recruited John Sculley to be Apple's new CEO. Mark Markula, who was Apple's second CEO, was ready to retire, and Jobs famously convinced Sculley to join Apple with the pitch, "Do you want to sell sugared water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world?" Little did he know, this new partnership between Jobs and Sculley would soon turn sour. Despite Macintosh's success, it was still struggling to topple IBM's dominance, and with time, tensions between the two escalated. Jobs was known for his relentless vision and hands-on approach, while Sculley wanted tighter control over product development. With both Lisa and Macintosh falling short of IBM's success, the cracks in their relationship deepened, leading to a fierce power struggle at Apple. And finally, in 1985, tensions between the two reached a breaking point. Jobs was frustrated by Sculley's leadership and attempted a bold coup to oust him from the company. But this move backfired in a massive way. To his surprise, the board sided with Sculley, removing Jobs from his management duties. With his hands effectively tied, Jobs made a dramatic exit from Apple, the very company he co-founded. Soon after, he launched Next, a new venture focused on building high-end workstations. Even Steve Wozniak left Apple around the same time, selling most of his shares and publicly announcing that the company was straying from its original vision. With Jobs gone, Apple's leadership was free to shift strategies, and they did so quickly. Sculley, along with Jobs' replacement, Jean-Louis Gassi, decided to focus on the high-end market by increasing the prices of Apple products, something Jobs had strongly opposed. This new policy, known as 55 or Die, demanded that the Macintosh 2 deliver a 55% profit per machine, even if it meant selling fewer units. Gassi heavily pushed this policy, leading to the release of the Macintosh 2, the first Mac with a color display. Despite being significantly more expensive than competitors, Apple maintained a loyal customer base due to its superior user interface. By 1991, Apple introduced the PowerBook laptop and System 7 operating system, which brought color to the Macintosh OS and remained in use until OS X was launched in 2001. During the early 90s, Apple also ventured into new product categories like the Newton Message Pad and the eMate. But priced at around $700 and limited to basic tasks like note-taking and contact management, they failed to capture the market's attention. The Newton Message Pad became one of Apple's biggest missteps of the decade, leading to Gassi's exit from the company. Apple's 55 or die strategy backfired in the late 80s, as cheaper IBM clones and Microsoft gained popularity. It didn't take long for John Sculley to be replaced. On the other hand, Steve Jobs kicked off an incredibly new chapter by founding Next Computers in 1985. Selling cutting-edge workstations aimed at colleges and universities just 3 years later. But that's not all. He also snagged Lucasfilm's graphics group and launched Pixar Animation Studios as its chairman. Pixar went on to revolutionize animation, with Toy Story making history as the world's first ever animated feature film. And when it went public, Jobs became a billionaire overnight. He went on to develop the revolutionary Next Step operating system and struck an impressive deal, selling Next to Apple for around $440 million, which facilitated his return as a consultant. In 1996, Gil Amelio attempted to stabilize the company, but as Apple's stock continued to plummet, his acquisition of Jobs' Next in 97 ultimately cleared the path for Jobs to step in as an interim CEO and revive the struggling tech giant. And during his next few years in the company, he made deals that would turn Apple into the market leader. He was performing marvels as the new CEO, from the release of the iconic iMac on August 15, 1998, to the introduction of Mac OS X and the iPod, which transformed the music industry. But it was when he unveiled the iPhone at Macworld that he truly turned Apple into a consumer electronics powerhouse. Jobs retired from the company in 2011, but he left behind a legacy that continues to inspire greatness. And while there may be debates about his complex character and explosive nature, the matter of fact is that he revolutionized technology as we know it. So what are your thoughts on his incredible comeback story? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories.